Shabbat Shalom again. As you know, we've just experienced again God's revelation at Mount Sinai, and it was just a week ago. The sounds, the lightning, and God's message moved us again. The learning experience of the Tikkun offers us another great opportunity to feel God and reflect His or her presence in our daily lives. We all know that feeling. We've just experienced something amazing. We are filled with joy, excitement, and hope. But, there's always a but. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had an experience in life that you hoped would never end? Many of us can recall such an experience. We want to hold on to that moment a little longer. Standing under the chuppah, holding a newborn child at a brit milah or a baby naming, hearing one's name called to receive a diploma, or even gathering around the weekly Shabbat table. But then, the day after comes, and the excitement starts to wear off. We start to come down from Mount Sinai, but we want to stay at the top of it, not moving away from the happiness of the chuppah, the newborn excitement, the commencement ceremony, the Shabbat table. However, we start to realize that life must go on and that there are still many challenges ahead of us. So what is Judaism saying to us about the day after? About the day that will inevitably arrive? And there's one simple answer: Parashat Naso. And two significant moments in the life of our people in the wilderness. Our dear Shakespeare, in his famous work Hamlet, wrote, "Brevity is the soul of wit." Sholem Aleichem translated it as kurz und schaft. And we today use the expression short and straight to the point. But no matter which language we use or which author we quote, the message is the same with one exception. Chapter 7 of the book of Numbers. It's the longest chapter in the entire Torah, 89 verses. It describes the offerings brought by the Nesiim, the heads of the tribes, on each day of the dedication of the tabernacle for a total of 12 days. It repeats the same spiel over and over again. 6 verses long each, word by word, 12 times. On the X day, it was the chief of so-and-so tribe. His offering was X. If we pay attention to the Torah reading, we say Gewalt. That sounds familiar. Did not we just read that? So why the repetition? Wouldn't it have been easier if the Torah just said each one brought his offering first, chief of the tribe of Yehudah, Nachshon ben Aminadab, on the second day Netanel ben Tzuar, chief of Issachar, and so on, giving the details of the offerings only for the first or last chief? What can we learn from the fact that the Torah repeats 12 times the exact same behavior? Many commentators saw and offer us a moral lesson from this text. For example, Nachmanides states that this passage teaches us the importance of honoring the chiefs of those tribes because they deserve special recognition. And so the Torah records the recognition and gives each chief the proper honor. Abravanel, the Portuguese Jewish philosopher and finances master of the 15th century, takes this idea one step further. He claims that each tribe brought identical gifts in order to prevent any dissension amongst the people of Israel or amongst themselves. They realized that, that in God's eyes, they were all equal, so the offering and gifts had to be equal as well. Despite the repetition, it becomes clear to everyone that all were treated the same. No prince or tribe was more important than any other. And another commentator, Rav Zalman Zorotskin, also called as the Lutzker Rebbe, says that the Torah's repetitiveness is to show that the second did not outdo the first, and the third did not outdo the second, and so on. Why? Because unlike most people, we are accustomed on public occasions in front of the entire Jewish people to exult in our generosity and show everyone how superior they are to others. These chiefs did not do so. Now, dear Bnei Torah wise people, did you notice a pattern here among these commentators? They all focus on the idea of the chiefs being all equal and no public displays of ego. They did not even quarrel over the order to bring their gifts, not even requesting a VIP section to offer the gift. That is why, in their honor, and to teach future generations a lesson, the offerings of all of them were each listed in detail despite the repetition. However, and there's always a however, I believe that our commentators are missing a crucial point. They failed to answer one of the questions I posed earlier. Wouldn't it have been easier if the Torah just said each one brought his offering? On the first day, the chief of Yehudah, on the second day, the chief of Issachar, and so on, giving the details of the offerings only for the first and last time? To answer that question, I would like to share with you the following analogy. A man was once on a speaking tour and prepared long and hard for his first speech. The speech was entertaining and engaging, a real success. The next night, he was scheduled to speak in another town, and he planned on giving the same talk. He was about to begin speaking when he noticed that some of the people present had heard him the night before. He couldn't give the same speech, so he quickly put a couple of ideas together and came up with a new one. However, it didn't compare to the previous night. After the speech, he approached the repeat customers and apologized for not having them a well-prepared speech. Disappointed, they replied, "You do not understand. We enjoyed last night so much that we came back to hear the same exact speech. We did not want to hear a different one." Perhaps we have to understand that repetition is not about boredom or about getting older, as my kids like to tell me when I repeat more than twice what I have to tell them. Rather, we can learn a lot by hearing things more than once. At the same time, the Torah is also telling us that each prince who brought a sacrifice, even though it was identical to the previous one, was like the first one in God's eyes. As it's special to God, it deserves to be repeated again and again. And this teaches us to appreciate all gifts, even if we've received them before, because it's truly the thought and the action that really matters. A final idea now that we are at graduation season. Ceremonies are usually long and boring with many speeches. And then each graduate is called up. It takes forever, right? Wouldn't it be quicker and less boring if they just announced that everyone graduates? But it doesn't work that way. Don't we want that moment when our child is called, walks down the aisle, crosses the stage, and receives his or her diploma? Isn't it worth sitting through the boredom for that glorious moment? That is why everyone is called up. Hundreds, if not thousands. Because so at that moment, each one is special and each one deserves the honor. Like the chiefs of the tribes of Israel, each one waited in turn for his one shining moment. And the tribal member, like the graduated family members, also patiently wait for that moment of pride. As repetitive and boring as it may be, that one moment is certainly worth it. When we have good news, when we walk down from our special Mount Sinai moment, we have to share them, and it's never too boring to repeat them. Too much bad happens in this world and in our lives. So when there is good, spend time on it, enjoy it, and let it last for a while longer. It will help us to focus our minds on the good. And when we have the opportunity to celebrate, please celebrate. If you have pictures of a special event, never get tired of looking at them. Like the ancient Israelites, there's nothing boring or wasteful in trying to recapture that moment and replaying it time and time again. I'm sure you are still waiting for the answer about the day after the significant event, right? Yes? So here comes the second idea of Parashat Naso. Naso is the longest portion in the entire Torah. Yet, one of its most moving passages is very short. It's the priestly blessing. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons. You shall bless the Israelites. Say to them, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his or her face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his or her face towards you and give you peace. And let them say my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them." This is amongst the oldest of all prayers. It was used by the priest in the temple. It is said today. It is used by parents as we bless the children on Friday night. It is often said to the bride and groom under the chuppah. It is the simplest and most beautiful of all blessings. What really gives the priestly blessing power is its simplicity and beauty. In all three verses, the first part refers to activity on the part of God. Bless. Make his or her face shine. Turn his face or her face towards you. Second part describes the effect of the blessing on us, giving us protection, grace, and peace. But the third, turn her face towards you, is the most meaningful one, at least for me. And let me explain it with a lovely story about a crowd of people who have gathered on a hill by the sea to watch a great ship pass by. A young child is waving his hand with passion and energy. One of the men in the crowd asks him why, and he says, "I'm waving so the captain of the ship can see me and wave back." "But," said the man, "the ship is far away and there is a crowd of us here. What makes you think that the captain can see you?" "Because," said the boy, "the captain of the ship is my father. He will be looking for me among the crowd." That is roughly what we mean when we say, "May the Lord turn his face towards you." There are over 7 billion people now living on this earth. What makes any of us more than a face in the crowd, a wave in the ocean, or a grain of sand on the seashore? The fact that we are God's children. And God will turn his face towards us after that significant moment in life. God cares. And that's our Torah answer to the day after. It's easy to feel disappointed or even discouraged on the day after a great event. But the day after a great event is a time for reflection and for planning. It's time to ask ourselves questions like, what did I learn from this experience? How can I use what I learned to make a difference in the world? What are my next steps? We know that we will have to leave the chuppah. The infant resting peaceful in our arms will grow. The achievement is fleeting, and the Shabbat pause will give way to a new week. A week with struggles and challenges. Birkat HaKohanim is the parting gift, expressing the heartfelt yearning that we might take the experience of blessing and security, light and grace, peace of mind, and God's presence with us as we return to the mundane. That blessing echoes in our hearts and souls as we descend from Mount Sinai, as we descend from that peak moment. Let's thank God that we have the ability to repeat the good in our lives, as well as to recognize and appreciate the good that others do for us, even if they've done it thousands of times before. Let's thank God for receiving us at Mount Sinai and to be inspired by the priestly blessing to continue with our daily lives and transform them into sacred moments. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.